Welcome to our latest edition of Meet a Nose, where we meet with remarkable thinkers in the field of perfumery. Today, we're super pleased to be joined here by Joseph Quartana, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in a minute. But first of all, we are recording this, and so with Joseph's permission, we will be releasing it on the internet. So this will live on beyond this little session. Having said that, we do these live because we enjoy questions and conversations. So if anybody has any questions or thoughts or wants to jump in, just pop it in the chat, and we'll jump you in if you want.
I've been giving lectures for 20 years, and
Exactly.
if social media has taught us anything in the last like 10 years, it's a community thing and it's an ebb and flow. You know, ask me anything you want, please. I'm super open to it. I'm not easily offended. Also, I got real thick skin, so you know,
you have to in the perfume world, man. If you don't have thick skin, you're toast. Yeah. Yeah, well, good. So let me start with a little introduction, just so we all know sort of the context that Joseph brings to this. So born in the USA in 1975, Joseph Quartana founded 7 New York, a cutting-edge fashion boutique in the Lower East Side in '99. The first to sell brands like Raf Simons, Preen, Bernhard Willhelm, and other radical high fashion designers, Joseph spent 15 years traveling around the world in search of the next fashion design sensation, particularly focusing on London, Paris, Antwerp, and Seoul. In 2008, he founded SIX SCENTS PARFUMS with a debut series of 6 fragrances. Quickly picked up by Colette, Henri Bendel, Isetan, Joyce, and Liberty London, among other prestigious global luxury retailers, Series 1 won a Cannes Golden Lion for innovation in packaging. Series 2 of SIX SCENTS Parfums debuted in 2010 and was nominated for a Fragrance Foundation Best Indie Award. And Series 3 debuted in 2011, won that award. Joseph went on to launch his namesake fragrance brand Parfumes QUARTANA in 2016, winning the Fragrance Foundation Perfume Extraordinaire Award for Poppy Soma, the only blindfold prize they offered in 2017. Quartana was commissioned to develop the official scent of John Cage's Silent 433 composition as part of the 40th anniversary box set of London-based Mute Records, Stum 433.
This is like that project was like the highlight of my career.
I want to ask you all about it.
I'm a huge Depeche Mode head, and you know that's their label, and I got to meet the founder, and he was like really into my work.
Oh,
and
amazing.
I of course worship him. So that was anyway. Yeah, that was super cool. It almost gave me. I got a stomach ulcer from it, but anyway.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So Joseph went on to launch SIX SCENTS Essentials in 2020, most recently, a curated reissue of notable highlights, award winners, top sellers, and unreleased gems. So that's Joseph in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that. But welcome, Joseph. I'm really glad to have you here. And I want to start. I want to start in '99. And ask you what led you to start 7 New York, because that was sort of your first foray into high fashion and eventually perfumery. So
in like '98, I graduated with I did a human behavioral concentration. So it means I studied like why people do what they do in the world. I did that as a kind of a foundation for some sort of creative marketing. I didn't know what industry I wanted to go into. I really wanted to work in the music industry. That was like my first passion. But at the time, Napster came along and just kind of destroyed the whole music industry. So
I remember that.
I had an eye for the fashion industry. My wife, actually, I was dating her at the time. We've been together for like 25 years, even longer, something like that. Anyway, it's been so long. Okay, I was gonna say the video just changed, but I see you just changed the angle. Anyway, because I was hanging out with my wife, who had just graduated from Parsons fashion school, and I went to NYU. I got exposed to kind of like the beginnings of the fashion industry, and basically I was very excited by what I saw coming down the runways at that time. We're coming out of the whole maximalist thing of the '90s, like what Tom Ford did for Gucci, and remember when he was there. And there was this beginning of a new movement of like intellectual fashion that was very, very, with putting an emphasis on creativity more than anything. I mean, guys like Walter van Beirendonck and all the Belgian, designers.
What are they, the Antwerp Six or something they called them? The Antwerp
Yes,
Six?
exactly.
Yeah.
The Antwerp Six summed up the spirit. Prior to that, it was the Japanese, like Comme des Garçons and Yoji in the 80s and so on. And so we just had suddenly this new crop of a second wave of Belgian designers that was just really exciting. And here in New York City, the best stores to find this runway fashion that that Barney's was too scared to carry. There was a store called Charivari, which I really worship. They're kind of a legend in New York. And they closed in like 98, and I was crushed because I spent all of my money working in nightclubs to like buy like Vivienne Westwood, and I realized I couldn't work in fashion. I couldn't work in music. So I wanted to actually become a buyer for a department store, and none of them would accept me. I applied everywhere and I interviewed, and they were like, "You're not cut out for this, get lost." And so I was really crushed by that. And anyway, so this is kind of weird. So something that I did on the side was that I studied finance as part of my economics concentration. And my parents miraculously allowed me to kind of invest their little bit of like life savings. We're not from a wealthy background, we're working class from New Jersey. Anyway, I actually had really good luck investing that money during the first dot-com boom in the late 90s. And, I got them a pretty penny of return. So I decided I'm just gonna open up my own store. This is the best thing, and carry these labels that no one can get and that I'm really excited about. In a shop called Sub in New York in 1999 with money actually that I made my parents from like basically investing in the market. And this is great because the whole time I had my boutique, which we finally closed it in early 2012 for reasons beyond my control. And I was lucky enough this entire 12, 13 years that I was doing this work and I had my store, others saw, our beacon and came. Like we had a lot of celebrity patronage, including like guys like Kanye, who I can't stand the man now, but he used to come in a lot, criticize me. Also, I have a beef with him going way back. Anyway, yeah, so I got lucky in having the store, and it never made so much money, but that wasn't really the goal. I mean, I had just enough to stay in business. So we stayed in business for 13 years, and we launched the careers of a great many fashion designers that came through, that came and went in that time, because I would often be the only store in the US anyway, if not the world, that would pick up some of these more radical designers. So as a result of our very theatrical selection of clothing, we had a lot of performers that were coming through the space over the years, including like Gaga and Madonna and Jay-Z, and I mean, you name them. Any like weird designer, any weird performer. Oh, Bjork was one of my best customers. Any weird performer, not weird, but owning their own identity, came through my doors. And so, and to this day, we still have a connection with them. That 2012, because our landlords were just really a shady bunch in Soho, and they put a scaffolding in front of my store for 4 years just to screw with me, So I had to sue them and stuff, and yeah, they're just true dicks. Anyway, and so we didn't have money to move because I spent all my money on lawyers fighting them for this bullshit. Yeah. And yeah, so it was okay, but so I haven't been in the fashion industry. Well, then afterwards, I actually consulted for like a department store, and then from there, I really focused on perfumery 100%, full time. And that's when I started developing Quartana, my namesake brand. It was around that time. Yeah.
Why did you
perfume figure in?
Yeah, that was my question. Like,
in 2008, I had a chance to start a fragrance collection, and it was perfect because I was kind of bored of fashion at the time. I needed a new challenge, and Simrise basically, was looking to develop a niche fragrance collection, and they're like, "Do you have any good ideas?" And the idea we came up with was basically, well, we specialize in all these cutting edge fashion designers. These fashion designers are like driving trends. Like people don't realize that, but they're really the creative force, like turning the machinery. And then the bigger houses typically copy them. So they're like dynamos of creative energy. And I knew this, and I knew them, and I would stalk them, and I wanted to support them. And I was like, guys, let's do some perfumes together, and let's render your creative vision, this new medium that you're not familiar with. So that's how SIX Scents was born. Combined 6 fashion designers, 6 perfumers.
Huh.
It was all a desire to like get their aesthetics out, me basically promoting them in like the US, because like I said, in the case of most of them, I was the only stockist. But here's the thing, is that to show you how unbiased I am, I actually I included a number of fashion designers I didn't even work with, in the SIX SCENTS, collections over the years. We did a bunch, so we worked with in total 24 designers, and then we did like 3 other special projects as well. In the 3 years that it was active. So it was very busy and very putting a lot out. They weren't as well thought out as like Quartana fragrances, but they're not meant to be. I mean, it was basically the designer, rather first I would select the designers, and then we'd have perfumers volunteer for who wants to work with each particular designer, which, we put together mood boards and presentations of the fashion and so on. So that way the perfumer was like into the designer's aesthetic and was like vibing with it. It would guarantee something fresh out gates, right? And so,
that's cool.
And then we would just kind of let them do their thing. They would kind of back and forth it. We were like, listen, we just want something awesome that no one smelled before. So we'll leave it to you guys to come up with it. We would just come up with an overall theme for the collection, and that's it. And otherwise, if they were like, hey, we have a tiebreaker, we like both of these, what do you think? We'd come in and we'd intervene in that way. But otherwise, it was just about pushing creativity. I specifically asked all the perfumers to bring out their like little book of secrets to try out new things that, haven't been done, and don't be afraid, because it's never been about sales for SIX SCENTS, and that's why they were limited edition. They were flexes by both the designers and the perfumers. And the perfumers that we worked with over the years, we worked with about 24 or so, maybe 23, because a few of them did multiples. Like Rodrigo Flores Roux did three SIX SCENTS for us, believe it or not. And Shamalaya Maison Dieu, who's been winning a ton of stuff, as is Rodrigo, did 2. Jan Vosnier did 2. David Appel, who I worked with,
I love Dave.
Fatal, he did actually 3 of them.
He's a great guy. Yeah, Dave is a really cool, down-to-earth guy, man. He's special.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing.
From Jersey, like you, huh?
No, I know, exactly. Yeah. And for Americans to be refreshingly, cultured as he is, and just calm and cool in his like own shoes, you don't see that often, because it's probably happening everywhere, but a lot of Americans I notice these days are just really just douchebags, and it's just like, to my fellow Americans, tone it down. You don't have to be so loud,
Yeah, well, we are in a special time where we're, it trickles down from the top, eh? Tell me about why. So tell me about Parfums Quartana, because that was a brand. The concept behind it, these poisonous flowers, really it captured my imagination. I thought it was really cool. So what led you to want to do poisonous flowers? What was that about?
Well, there's a really funny backdrop to this, actually. Everything I do for a reason. It's not just pulling stuff out of my ass. So I lost my shop in 2011 after getting kind of harassed. 2012, getting harassed by my landlords and stuff. And it built up this venom inside of me. I was very angry about that because I lost everything, I should have been a multimillionaire. I proved to the judge when I sued them that their scaffolding caused me to lose about a 1.5 million in sales. I proved this mathematically, and yet I still lost. So I was embittered, and because I had nothing. I worked 12 years every day of my life to make this brand, and I was known around the world. I had judged maybe about 4 or 5 hugely famous and influential fashion contests around the world, including the Guand and Swiss Textiles Prize in Zurich, the Andem Prize. I'm the only American to do it 2 times in Paris. And then suddenly it's just like nothing. And then, I couldn't work in fashion after that because I guess the contraction in the industry had already started. So, it kind of sucked. So I was bitter about that. So meanwhile, I decided to hey, I'm going to just focus full time on SIX SCENTS, and it was just the right time. But since all of our fragrances were limited edition, we had nothing new to really do, and so I figured, okay, let's start totally fresh here. And in 2014, actually, I got approached by Rona Stokels, who in some sense is a matriarch for me. At this point, she was the president at Simrise Fine Fragrance, and she's like, hey, I love your work. Do you have any great ideas for doing something? Here I am, deja vu. 14 years later, they asked me this question already once, and so they want to see if I have any good ideas again. And I was so still like smarting about having lost my shop and everything that I was like, yeah, I have this great idea. I want to do something based on poison flowers, because like that's what I'm feeling right now.
Poison. Yeah, it's funny that. Yeah.
And so the whole thing was a huge catharsis for me, you know, something that's seemingly beautiful but deceptively actually deadly. It was something I really needed to dive into at that point in my life. And so, you know, they were really excited about it. And initially it was only supposed to be 6. And I pitched them on 8 ideas. And after doing about 6 months of research on poison flowers, and they liked it so much, they're like, we want to do 9. Because Dave Appel actually has an idea for a foxglove that, you know, you didn't present us with, but it's kind of brilliant and it should be in here. So David actually, he did Digitalis, AKA foxglove. And that wasn't originally part of it. So it kind of sticks out. And I'll talk about that, how much it sticks out in the collection, because it wasn't the same basis as what I was going for in my exploration of poison flowers and what I wanted to do and accomplish with the series. But first and foremost, I really wanted to honor these poison flowers and their role in history, going back to, you know, ancient times, like ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, as they were used for assassinations and suicide. But more interestingly, what I realized is that depending upon the dosage, all of these poison flowers are in fact, can be psychedelic. Yeah, so, you know, anyway, the whole experience was really fun. It took us 3 years to do each of the poison flowers, and with 1 nose each. And we did literally hundreds of mods after doing all this research and stuff. And so we decided basically that the potions fatale should be a highlights reel of the infamy and the psychedelic magic nature of these poison flowers. And that's what we really tried to capture in the color palette and the feeling and the texture of all of them. They're all fundamentally beautifully and they're flattering. None of them are weird. None of them smell funky, you know, because like a poison flower, it should at least seem beautiful. And so that was sort of the...
How did the perfumers interpret them? I mean, were they asked to interpret them literally or more metaphorically, or I mean, what was the
both? And once again, I like to lead with what the perfumers were feeling. So the funny thing is that in a few of them, we smelled all of them. We got our hands, actually I should say most of the poison flowers we managed to get our hands on. It was very hard actually, because some are illegal and some are just not available at certain times of year and so on. But we managed to smell them, and a few of them we really liked the smells. So we were like, wow, this really needs to be the basis of the scent. A few other ones were totally imaginary. Like blood flower is totally imaginary. It does exist, and it is a poison flower, and it's consumed by the monarch caterpillar to turn into the monarch butterfly. But the vampiric aspect was just basically an interpretation of the name. So that was more of a fictional sort of thing. But on the other hand, like Mandrake is very much a dissection of the folklore, like literally.
Yeah, there's a lot there with Mandrake.
Yeah,
weren't they imagined as little homunculi or something back in the day? Like, was that Mandrake? They're the ones that they look like little bodies, right?
Well, this one basically it's a phallic-looking root.
Yeah,
part of a flower system that's ripped up out of the... It was famously depicted in Harry Potter. It screams and it's supposed to kill you with the scream.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
But anyways, I was like, it was always, when Harry Potter was coming out, I think I was like 23. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go there. I was like already reading Hermann Hesse and I was like into that kind of stuff. So it's like, but I love all this stuff. I mean, I love fantasy and fantasy worlds and everything. So I'm not gonna knock it.
No. I'm right there with you. Don't worry.
Knock the socks off. Yeah.
I read it with a little bit of self-loathing, but I read it all. But Mandrake. But traditionally, Mandrake was considered. It was like metaphorically. Perhaps I'm not remembering correctly, but it was considered some sort of stand-in for the human body also, and they were considered. I'm trying to remember who, but someone...
Listen, I tried to uncover as much research as possible about each of these poison flowers, but I still learned things about them. They're quite complex. We got enough in there that we thought it fairly summarily sums up each of these, you know, and, I mean, they've gotten pretty good reaction, thank God. Thank you to all the people that have liked them or tried them out and given them a fair assessment and review, because some people really didn't like them, and
You know what,
quite
man, I'll tell you what, with the internet teaches us is
all over
there's always someone to say some bullshit about something somewhere, you know, that's how it goes. Yeah.
Listen, I do them kind of for myself and for my fans. So it's like, you know, if people are going to hate, it's okay. It's okay. You know, it doesn't bother me. Everyone has an opinion and they should, wow, you know, it's what makes the
deal
world
with it though. I mean, so actually I'm just asking for my own clarity, like, because I struggle with it, you know, when people send mean-spirited or critical, I don't mind, but mean-spirited I do. You know, how do you deal with it? How do you
no, of course there's plenty
respond?
and the easiest thing to do was that say I'm sorry, I'm talking over you, say again.
No, we're having a little internet thing, but I was saying, do you ignore or do you respond when people are, you know, mean?
No one's being a troll. It's just like block, bye. I have zero tolerance for it. I can see people's motivations coming from a mile away because remember, I did human behavioral science. You know, I can read people like books. So if I detect bullshit, if I detect trickery or thing like that, I'm very rarely fooled, although I have been fooled. If I detect it, it's just like, bye scumbag, like you're gone, you know, and I will never talk to that person again. And so that's the only way you can be in the fashion industry, trust me. So I surrounded myself with good people, and there are plenty of great people in the fashion industry that have morals and ethics and are not doing it for their own self-aggrandizement, but they have genuinely a message to say, and they're dedicated to the craft and the beauty of it. These are the people I surrounded myself with. These are the people I worked with. These are the people I aspired to be like. And these are the people whose processes I learned and studied when I finally created my own fragrance collection and how I work. It absolutely informed how I work, you know? So you just gotta be like that. If you know, the trolls are the trolls. Critics I love, please tell me how I can be better. I wanna learn every day. I want to, because I don't know everything. I'm only 45. I mean, and I've only worked in fragrance like since 2008, and I have no background in it either. So everything has been kind of self-taught, and I come more from a perspective of like, you know, luxury creative arts than perfume per se. In fact, I come more from a music background. That's what my family is all about. Everyone in my family is a musician going back.
Is that right? What kind of music do they make? What's the?
Well, my grandfather basically wrote music for the cinema in Palermo, where we're from, in Sicily.
Oh, cool.
And his father went to the best conservatory for music in all of Italy. And all of my cousins, my father, my aunts, uncles, everyone is a musician in my family. Even my father's band played on the Merv Griffin show in the 60s, you know?
That's so cool.
It's so weird, yeah. But I don't play any instruments, weirdly, you know? So, but I know good music when I hear it. But for me, talking about this, if I may make a really quick point.
Please.
For me, perfumery is music. It's the same. We're dealing with notes, chords, harmonies, mixed downs, and it's a field that relies upon visual art to make a point, you know, much like an album cover. So I treat the perfume boxes like album covers for my LPs, if you will. And I work with engineers, you know, who help me lay the songs down. And yeah, and it starts with a good divine spark, so to speak, that inspiration of like, hey, I got this great idea for Wolfsbane.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just kind of jam, and then when we start to like what we hear and we feel it makes sense and everything else, and then we test it out, we have people try it, and once we start to get that reaction, it's like, oh fuck yeah, man, you know, like then we're like, all right, it's done. We'll get that consistently, and it's not accused of smelling like anything else. That's the other thing. You have to be really careful.
That's tough, man, because everything's been done, you know. I mean, how do you find originality in this world? It's
especially if you're doing basic things. If you're doing really simple fragrances, like, hey, I'm gonna put out a rose scent. It's like, you know,
you have a category to,
well, but there's like 2,000 different rose oils you can use. You can get real dirty in there in terms of like being very specific with what you want to say. However, is to go over the heads of everyone, because who really can differentiate that? I mean, I was a smoker for 25 years, and I know my nose is not perfect. So there's plenty of things. When Dave Appel and I were working together, too, I was still smoking, and Dave's they smell different. Now that I quit smoking and I smell them, I'm like, oh my God, this is totally not really what I exactly meant, because there's like little details I can try to pick up now. But I was like, thank God they work. So it's a funny thing. Like you heal and then you start to smell things you didn't smell for years.
How did you quit smoking?
Well, I had just had enough, and I was like, I really, you know, I need to quit this. I need to be done with it. What I realized is that you have to quit smoking and drinking at the same time. You can't do one without the other, because one is, you know, I mean, for me, they were like two peas in a pod. So I had to go sober, and I wanted to. I was a functional alcoholic, so I worked every day, even though I would be like drinking from 5 p.m. It was really nuts. But here's the real clincher with how I was able to quit is I was in a coma for a week, actually.
Oh, so jeez, what happened?
Funny story. And I didn't really, you know, press this when it happened. But okay, so after we finished all of the Poison Flowers development, we launched and everything. We got, you know, I got nominated for Perfume Extraordinaire, which is this crazy prize,
amazing,
which is basically a blindfolded prize done by other perfumers. So it's, you know, every house like L'Oreal, Givaudan, IFF, so on, they all smell all of the fragrances that they've done for the year that they've created, all blindfolded, all their evaluators, all their perfumers. And then they take one and they nominate it for Perfume Extraordinaire. So out of this pool of like 15 or 20, then those are blindfold smelled by a panel that the Fragrance Foundation put together. And so I got into the top 10 and they told me about that. And I was so shocked. I mean, first, actually, Sophie Bensamou from Simrise told me, hey, we're submitting your Poppy Soma for Perfume Extraordinaire. And I was like, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting it. I really thought, firstly, it would have been more like Wolfsbane or Hemlock, which I thought had a little bit more mass appeal. But anyway, Poppy Soma made it in. And then I got news. I got to the top 5, and I was like, "All right, this is just bonkers." And I was like, "You know what? I've already won." In my mind, that I got, because I was kind of crushed. I got no nominations for anything, you know, for Fatal. I was like, "Fuck!" I got like nominated twice for Best Indie for these fragrances we kind of rushed where my heart was not in. Then I spent 3 years doing the be all end all.
And nothing.
Poison Flowers and nothing. Yeah, nothing. Oh, and beyond that, the fashion industry wanted nothing to do with it. They didn't get it at all. They were like, go
weird. I feel like they'd be all over it. Okay.
One would think. I know. But this is also how the fashion industry has changed to become very basic and not all about creativity anymore. It's horrible in that way and really boring. Anyway, I was kind of crushed. And then so suddenly by getting this redemption a little bit, I was at least getting a recognition. I got into the top 5 of Perfume Extraordinaire. And so I got invited to the Fifis, my second time attending it. I couldn't even afford the ticket as usual. So Simrise.
They make you pay for the ticket when you're.
Yeah.
What the?
They made us pay for Best Indie too. When I won in 2011, what we could afford was the garden seat. So I was literally watching the awards from outside while my category was coming up. And I had to go tell
bananas. I mean, I'm sorry.
Hey,
like,
if I win, can you let me in so I can go accept the prize? And he felt bad, so he's like, just come in.
Oh, I'm sorry. If I may, I love the Fragrance Foundation. I love the Fifis. They do amazing work, but you can't make the finalists pay. I mean, that's crazy.
No, I know. It's a little bit silly.
Anyway, okay.
It's not my budget, so I wouldn't do it that way. But anyway, so they bought me a ticket. I got in there. And the categories, my category came up, and it was like me, and then Heretic, who's another great brand, and Diana Vreeland fragrance made it in there, and 2 other really nice ones. I can't remember now. And I won, and I was like shocked.
Amazing. I remember. I was really happy for you.
So weird. And Joel McHale presented the prize. This was super weird because I love him. I watched The Soup for years, and it was just like, what is happening? This is the weirdest thing. And Katie Holmes also was there. Anyway, that night I go home, and I'm finally gonna answer your question with how I quit smoking. I go home that night, and turns out my gallbladder decides to explode, and I had to get rushed to NYU hospital and get emergency surgery at 6 a.m. to save my life.
That very night.
That very night.
No way.
The very night. You can't make this up. So the night I was fated for my collection based on death, I almost met my maker. I should have.
Hell, that is.
And
crazy.
had I not gone to the ER, the doc said my wife would have found me dead on the floor. So
wow,
isn't that nuts?
Scary.
I mean,
that's
like,
crazy.
What the fuck? Yeah,
it's a close call, and that's scary.
Yeah, and so I had to get this crazy surgery. I've never even gotten surgery in my life. do this crazy surgery for 8 hours, and then sit in the hospital for like 2 weeks, shell-shocked, like being like, did I really win that prize, or was it just a hallucination?
All dream, yeah.
And I couldn't promote anything, so we lost so much money. I couldn't go to like
man.
Exants or any of the festivals because I'm like holding on for dear life as I might die, you know. And you just have a huge reassessment of everything in your life and what's really important and what isn't, while you're sitting there in the hospital bed. And then I had to get another surgery that put me out of commission for like literally a year. I couldn't even walk. I had this like scar that's like this long on my belly, and I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff, you know. I had to take out part of my stomach. And so anyway, it was kind of bonkers, but during that time I quit drinking and smoking.
I bet you did. Yeah. That's, you know, well, I'm sorry it took so much to get you there.
At NYU, yeah, watching the East River, you know, I remember like on 4th of July. But anyway, I highly recommend it. Get into a coma, and you're gonna come out being like, I don't feel like smoking anymore.
I'll try to do it without the coma. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about, speaking of enforced silence, let me ask you about your work on the John Cage 433.
Oh yeah.
Which is so what led you to how did that project manifest, and how did you?
Okay, yeah, this is crazy. So, man, so this. Where do I even begin? So I've been a huge fan of everything that Mute Records has done since I was a kid. I mean, I remember in the early 80s, I was born in 75. So I came up right when, you know, I was conscientious of things right when like MTV started, and I was hooked on that.
I remember, yeah.
Okay, yeah, totally. And I was really into all the music and bands that they were pushing, especially any band that made music on a synthesizer. In America, we didn't hear too much of that. You know, we got Yaz, we got Thompson Twins, Eurythmics. That's about it, you know. Yeah. Most of it was really cheesy rock, like REO Speedwagon and this garbage, you know. You're like, so anyway, Mute, you know, being one of the premier and the first, I think, major English electronic label that pushed only electronic bands, following the footsteps of what Crawford was doing in the 70s, you know, started to put out bands. Well, like Yaz, they did get radio play in New Jersey and New York because Francois Kevorkian remixed it, and he was a huge DJ on the dance floors then. But then, you know, they put out also Depeche Mode, who everyone knows. Whether you like them or not, you have to respect them as a music act that really pushed the envelope, and whose music sounds as fresh today as it did, you know, 30 years ago. Like Violator, that album is amazing.
I love Depeche Mode. I love Depeche Mode.
Okay, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, and I think most viewers that are talking about, and if you don't know, just check them out, because I still listen to them to this day. Anyway, they made me who I am today. So so I've been a huge fan and following and so on, and I'm also, the label founder is a gentleman named Daniel Miller, and he also records music. He does a lot of techno these days, but back then he recorded under a band called The Normal. They were also a synthesizer band. They're very famous for creating a song called Warm Leatherette, which was famously covered by Grace Jones. It's like, warm
leatherette. See what is it? See the breaking glass on the underpass.
Exactly. It's all based on the J.G. Ballard
I love that song.
Crash, you know?
Right,
It's a really cool dystopian kind of story. And then the original version of Warm Leatherette is this like really harsh industrial synth-like. It's amazing. Sure.
I actually edited a video to that song, you know, maybe 5 years ago, and I just have it like in my subconscious. There's like Warm Leatherette somewhere, you know.
It's really dope. So that's Daniel Miller, the guy who founded the record label, did this. So anyway, one night I was going to a concert in Brooklyn for this band called Adult Period, and they're a Detroit outfit. It's a husband and wife that does this kind of like synth punk stuff. I've been following them since they started in the late 90s. And in fact, they actually played my first Fashion Week party for my boutique, 7 New York, way back in 2000. I flew them in, and we did this warehouse. Well, we did a party in Chinatown, basically. We took over a tech office, and it was like 1,000 people, and it was friggin' awesome, underground. And there's even someone got stabbed. It's kind of horrible, but there's like blood splatter on the walls. It's kind of like legit, like crazy New York punk stuff.
Authentic.
2000, keeping it real, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been following this band, and I'm still friendly with them. And I managed to get backstage passes for their concert. They were also playing with Cold Cave, who I never heard before, and I really wanted to hear. As I was telling you, I'm gonna love them. So I go backstage, and And you know, I'm like, hey guys, you know, like surprise, you know, they're happy to see me and stuff. And so we're hanging out backstage, and who comes backstage but the head of marketing for Mute Records, this brilliant woman named Mona.
Wow.
We immediately hit it off. She started to chat about fragrance and what I do. And anyway, a few months before I met Mona, I had read about that Mute was putting out a box set dedicated to John Cage's 433 composition, where they were going to have every single Mute artist do a cover of 433. And this is for their 40th anniversary, as they call it. It's an anniversary, but they call it anniversary. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, you know? So for those that don't know what this song is, let me tell you a little bit about John Cage's 433 composition. So 433 is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of recorded silence, where the musician basically just sits at his instrument and that's it. And there's 3 parts to it. So the microphone is just rolling, and the tape is rolling while he's just sitting there. So you hear a little bit of breathing, you hear the audience coughing, maybe someone's moving their chair. And it's basically just supposed to be a sort of a scrim, if you will, to capture whatever sound happens to be on there. It's kind of like a net or a, you know, like a bug stick paper or something. And that's really the idea. It's this very strange reactive art piece. It was inspired by, Christ, why can't I think of the artist now? Because I haven't talked about this for like a year. But basically, I can't remember his name. Someone in the early 50s did 3 paintings. Okay, they were just white canvases, just painted white squares. And that's it. And those paintings, I can't think of the artist's name. It's driving me nuts. It's not Donald Judd, but someone like this. Ellsworth Kelly, maybe, someone like this. The idea was that those paintings would just capture light and shadow throughout the day. And that's all it is. It's a reactive piece. So John Cage was like, I want to do the music equivalent of that piece, these white canvases. And so that's what 433 is. It's really just recording the mic on these sounds, and it's really quite amazing. So when Mute announced that they were going to have all their bands, including Depeche Mode and Warm and The Normal, all cover, and Einstein Neubauten and all these guys all cover 433, well, you might think to yourself, what's there to be excited about? Because it's just going to be Depeche Mode being quiet for 4 minutes and 32 seconds. But no, come on, people. There's so much finery in there. And firstly, you're recording their very essence. So what does the artist sound like or feel like without the music? It's the essence. So if you're really into like sorcery, this is a catalog of their very souls. It's really fabulous.
I really want to hear that. That, by the way, it was Rauschenberg.
Yeah, I think you're right. That rings a bell. So hang on, someone's buzzing my buzzer. It might be
no problem. It's okay. We have like 5 more minutes, so if you need to get it, you know.
Oh, geez. No, don't worry. I better pick up the pace then a little bit. So anyway, I go backstage. We're talking. So yeah, so I read about the release for this, and I asked Mona right then and there. I was like, "Are you guys doing a candle or a smell for this? Because it's kind of begging to be done." And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Well, I kind of do this." And she's like, "Holy shit! I have to tell Daniel." And so I had a face-to-face meeting with Daniel Miller. He flew in from England, and that was just the weirdest, most surreal like day of my life, because I'm meeting this guy who I think is the Pope in the music world. And it was just amazing to sit with him. And I just thanked him for like making me who I am today and everything. But the point is, he liked the idea I pitched him. I told him, like, the idea I have is basically in this 4 minutes and 32 seconds of silence, it's a flash of creative lightning in an old British wooden theater. And it's so scintillating, it burns the air. And so we used, you know, some, we used oak wood for cedar. I think for the theater, we used a lot of, there's frankincense there to make up the burn smell. And it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? My God, I can't think. Ozonic.
Oh yeah, okay.
Once again, I haven't thought about these fragrances for a while because I've been thinking about my new one. So yeah, it was a super ozonic masterpiece. And anyway, he loved it. We put it out. We launched this in October of 2019, and it's limited edition. It's 433 sets. So you get 5 records of like 57 artists' versions of 433, and then my candle set in there.
That is so cool. I might actually just buy it for myself.
Yeah, there might be a few still floating around. I mean, listen. I have a few candle sets. I'll send you one gratis. Come on.
No,
you need to
I
have
am. I would like to support. You know.
Listen, you know, if you're into this idea, I have a few to give out. You know, they gave me a few extras. So you know, but anyway, yeah. So that was really fun and friggin' life-changing experience, and I'm so honored to have done it. And I could die right after that.
Yeah,
like,
that is a pretty awesome. That is a pretty awesome project. Okay, so we have to end, but I want to end just with what you're working on now, like what you're excited about now that people can check out. So Six Scents, obviously.
Yeah, Six Scents has launched finally. The first thing it's done is since 2011, early 12. So the last thing we did, where I basically brought back, due to popular demand, because over the last 8 years, I've had people begging me to bring some of them back out, you know. So I released a trio of like 3 of our bestsellers. I got them right here, and I'm re-christening these guys. They're limited edition. I mean, this is what the bottle looks like. It comes in the bag, basically. We're trying to keep the packaging footprint quite minimal, so there's no actually outer box.
Good for you. Good for you.
Available online, so we use the shipping carton as the outer, you know, just to save one more step.
Well done. Yeah.
Unnecessary packaging. And it's all about the juice, because we worked with really wonderful, I mean, besides the fact that these are tried and true, and 2 of them actually won FIFA prizes for Best Indie, including to feature a semen accord, which made, you know, it made some headlines back then. And Lady Gaga actually was inspired by us to include it in hers. And then number 87, also, this guy also won a Fragrance Foundation Award. It's a very piney, it's a green scent with a lot of Japanese woods and a saltwater accord, but also a motor oil accord, which makes a little bit of an industrial edge, and it's quite cool. The motor oil kind of works as an amber, you know, in an interesting way. And then the third fragrance, and again, there's only 250 of these, and that's it. That's all I'm putting out, and I can't put it out anymore. This one, Urban Tropicalia, was actually the first fragrance I ever put out in my life. And it was our top seller. So I'm very honored, you know, that like the first one I ever did sold as well as it did. And this is a tropical scent for people who don't like tropical scents. It's also quite unisex because all of the fruit accords are quite gender neutral. So we got black currant, apricot, green apple, lemon, lime, and then some cinnamon, some tahit, and some freesia and jasmine to round it out. So it's basically a genderless tropical fruit that smells like you just flew into the beaches of Rio. It's really quite lovely in that regard.
That sounds enticing to me. I love juicy tropical scents. I don't care.
Yeah, you must try it. I have to send you some samples. All the samples, by the way, are fully reimbursable towards a full size. And now we're selling all 3 samples for $18. You could try the 3 of this trio of bestsellers and get $18 back towards my very fair price of only I think it's $58 for a 30 ml of this is actually a parfum, not even eau de parfum.
Scandalously affordable. How do you rationalize being so reasonable with your prices?
Yeah, I'm not insensitive to COVID. We are also suffering, and you know, these I'm working with a mind towards accessible luxury moving forward. These are the best of the best. They won Fifi prizes. They're IFRA certified. They're not hard, and there's minimal packaging, and they're my top sellers. So thousands of people can't be wrong. And if you're looking for a new sensation, I suggest you try these, please. And then, so the next one I'm coming out with is actually the first unreleased Six Scents, and that one is by Colette Becker.
Oh, I love Colette Becker. She's incredible. And she's a great perfumer.
And this one, Saskia, it's mind-bending and one of my favorite I've ever done, period. In fact, it might be my favorite. It's a leather gourmand, but it's really unique. So it's quite amazing. You'll see. I'll send you, of course, samples. And but anyone who's watching this, please try it. Trust me, you're good. I get out of bed in the morning to do creative things to get you guys excited. So that's why I wanted to hear from, you know, your stuff. And so and if anyone wants to comment, obviously also, I read everything. So, you know, I will respond as long as, you know, in good intentions.
Yeah, no meanies.
So,
no
and
meanies.
by the way, these are only available on my website, SIX Scents. Yeah, no meanies. These are only available at six-scents.com. So they're web exclusive. You could also try, of course, my Potions Fatales, my poison flower collection by my namesake brand Quartana, available there as well. If you're looking for something totally different and something super badass and very empowering for females, so I designed them to be extremely female empowering, all of the Potions Fatales. They're all unisex, by the way, but some really work well on women, like the Belladonna and the Datura and my Lily of the Valley, and actually, for that matter, Poppy Soma. Weirdly enough, Saskia, my best seller from the Potions Fatales is my vampire fragrance, Bloodflower.
Oh, interesting.
So weird. Like, now number one. Something I almost didn't put out much, but
people like the vampires.
Like anyway.
Yeah, unexpected. Well, Joseph, I could talk to you literally for hours because I love what you do. I think you're a really cool guy. I like your politics,
Thank you so much.
But that's a
Thank
different
you.
story.
Listen, I so appreciate what you guys do too. Please keep it up because we need champions of the indie world. You know, who else is gonna give us love and get us some exposure? You know.
Yeah,
so I really appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to finally talk to you at length too.
I know. We're so overdue, like years overdue, you know, but well, there'll be other opportunities. So for everyone who's asking, we will share the video. I'm just going to do a quick edit, just to, you know, make sure that there's some moments where I've made stupid sounds. I think I blabbered for a little bit. It went by so fast. Not at all. I can't believe it's that long, you know. I know these sessions always pass really quickly. Yeah. Like, you're like, an hour and then it's done. So yeah, I thought I had like a half an hour more, so that's good. No, you filled this time. Well, thank you, Joseph. Yay. And thank you, Saskia. Thanks everybody for joining. And yeah, thanks to everyone who took the time to spend an hour with us. I really appreciate that. Feel free to comment so you at least know who I talked to for the last hour.